Good morning. Here is your global news report for April 7, 2026. The international situation is currently defined by escalating tensions between the United States and Iran over the Strait of Hormuz, with the threat of military conflict and soaring oil prices impacting the global economy. Simultaneously, NASA's Artemis 2 mission has achieved a historic spaceflight, while technological and economic competition between the US and China, along with complex geopolitical relations, are intensifying. The threat of military conflict between the United States and Iran over the Strait of Hormuz has reached an extreme level. President Trump issued a final warning, stating he could take over the entire country overnight, while Iran countered with a 10-point proposal seeking a permanent cessation of hostilities and the lifting of sanctions. Crude oil prices have surged to over $110 per barrel, causing widespread effects on the global economy. NASA's Artemis 2 mission, carrying 4 astronauts, is currently flying to explore the far side of the moon. It has set a new record for the greatest distance from Earth in human history, approximately 406,000 kilometers, surpassing the record set by Apollo 13. Major media outlets are reporting on images of Earth from the moon and detailed mission progress, marking a historic advancement in space exploration. The technological and economic competition and geopolitical relationship between the US and China are intensifying. China questions the US's ability to achieve both technological self-sufficiency and market openness, criticizing student visa regulations. China portrays the US as a rogue state and plans to expand visa-free travel with Russia. This situation is also reflected in the competition for talent in the semiconductor and AI fields, as well as China's analysis of how the Iranian situation might affect the Taiwan issue. Next, here are the key stories from the US. Former President Trump warned of military action against Iran over the Strait of Hormuz, leading to a surge in oil prices. Domestically, the Supreme Court dismissed the criminal prosecution of former aide Steve Bannon, and the Artemis 2 lunar flyby mission is approaching. Former President Donald Trump warned via social media that if Iran did not open the Strait of Hormuz, he would attack Iranian energy facilities and bridges on Tuesday. This caused U.S. crude oil prices to surge by over 11%, exceeding $111 per barrel. Brent crude reached $110.60, and U.S. crude reached $113.60. The Supreme Court approved the Trump administration's withdrawal of criminal charges against former White House advisor Steve Bannon, who was convicted in 2022 for failing to comply with a subpoena related to the January 6, 2021, Capitol attack. The court's decision effectively nullified the charges. The Artemis 2 mission is scheduled to conduct a lunar orbit flight on Monday. The 4 astronauts, including NASA's Reid Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and Canadian Space Agency's Jeremy Hansen, will survey the moon, including its far side. This mission marks a significant step in human space exploration. Next, here are the key stories from Europe. While the European region is experiencing heightened tensions in Iran and associated oil price fluctuations, domestic issues are also being reported, such as the recruitment freeze for ambulance personnel and attacks on police at an illegal rave in the UK, and the threat of African swine fever in Spain. Iran rejected a 45-day ceasefire proposal, and Israel attacked an Iranian petrochemical plant. Furthermore, US President Trump demanded the opening of the Strait of Hormuz and hinted at attacks on Iranian infrastructure, causing the Brent crude price to temporarily exceed $110 in volatile trading. In Wales, UK, approximately 70 trainee ambulance personnel are facing a recruitment freeze due to financial and operational issues, leading them to consider employment abroad. Similar recruitment freezes are anticipated across the UK. During the closure of an illegal rave attended by about 2,000 people in a scenic area of Dorset, police officers were attacked with thrown objects, resulting in 11 arrests. Additionally, in a separate incident near Barnsley, a 45-year-old man was killed by a vehicle, and 4 people were arrested on suspicion of murder. Next, here are the key stories from the Middle East. The US is pressuring Iran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, setting Tuesday as a deadline and warning of infrastructure destruction. Iran has suggested closing the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. In the region, the UAE experienced an attack, and Israel suppressed anti-war demonstrations. North Korea has also shown a move to distance itself from Iran. US President Trump warned Iran that if the Strait of Hormuz is not reopened by Tuesday, he would destroy Iranian infrastructure. In response, Iran suggested the possibility of closing not only the Strait of Hormuz but also the Bab el-Mandeb Strait through its allies. OPEC Plus agreed to a 206,000 barrels per day oil production increase in May. However, due to attacks by the US and Israel on Iran and the de facto closure of the Strait of Hormuz since late February, major oil-producing countries such as Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, and Iraq are unable to increase production. Meanwhile, it was reported that 3 ships, including the Turkish tanker Ocean Thunder, passed safely through the Strait of Hormuz. In Abu Dhabi, UAE, one Ghanaian national was injured in the Muzaffar district by debris from an intercepted attack. In Israel, police violently suppressed an anti-war demonstration held in Tel Aviv's Habama Square. Next, here are the key stories from Russia. Drone attacks from Ukraine hit major oil terminals, and floods in Dagestan resulted in 5 deaths. Domestic situations also saw changes, including tax increases for wartime expenditure and a corruption conviction of a former governor. Ukrainian drones attacked the Caspian Pipeline Consortium (CPC) marine terminal in southern Russia, damaging part of the mooring facilities and setting 4 oil tanks ablaze, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. In the North Caucasus Republic of Dagestan, floods occurred for the second consecutive weekend, resulting in at least 5 deaths. Among the victims were those killed by landslides and several individuals, including 2 children, swept away by the floodwaters. The Russian Union of Industrialists and Entrepreneurs, RSPP, Russia's largest business association, has indicated its willingness to discuss a temporary windfall tax with the government to compensate for budget shortfalls due to increased wartime expenditures. Next, here are the key stories from China. China is easing IPO regulations to promote technological innovation, with the direction of the market under the 5-year plan drawing attention. US restrictions on student visas continue. In Hong Kong, luxury housing rents are rising, and soaring fuel costs are pressuring the economy. Initial public offerings, IPOs, in China's mainland market increased by 56% in the first quarter compared to the previous year. With regulatory easing, 29 companies raised a total of 25.7 billion yuan, $3.7 billion US. China's 5-year plan is being discussed for its potential to pursue both technological self-sufficiency and market openness simultaneously, and its impact on regional patterns of dependence and independence in Southeast Asia. Due to US restrictions on issuing student visas to mainland China and Hong Kong, the number of visas issued to mainland Chinese students decreased by 42% year-on-year, and for Hong Kong, it decreased by 35%. Next, here are the key stories from Japan. Japan is holding consultations with Iran to de-escalate the Middle East situation, requesting the release of Japanese nationals and the safety of vessels. Domestically, Prime Minister Takaichi discussed the circumstances of the dissolution of the House of Representatives and is focusing on EV sales, money, and food tax reductions. The imperial family visited Fukushima. Foreign Minister Modi held a phone consultation with Iranian Foreign Minister Zarif, earnestly requesting Iran's sincere response to mediation efforts in the Middle East situation, ensuring the safety of Japanese-related vessels in the Strait of Hormuz, and the swift release of one Japanese national currently detained in Iran. Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi stated that regarding the dissolution of the House of Representatives on January 23, even the executive members of the Liberal Democratic Party were not informed, so they were all furious. She revealed that the decision was made by consulting with close aides at the Prime Minister's office without prior consultation with party executives. In the first quarter of 2025, January-March, domestic new electric vehicle (EV) sales reached a record high of 26,959 units, an 80% increase year-on-year. Toyota, which had a subsidy difference of approximately 1 million yen, performed strongly, while China's BYD saw sluggish growth. Next, here are the key stories from Asia-Oceania. In India, state assembly election campaigns are nearing their end, with reports of security issues in Delhi and an assault on a candidate in Kerala. Meanwhile, Indonesia is maintaining fuel prices, and Malaysia is expanding diesel subsidies, showing regional differences in economic policies. In India, election campaigning for the state assembly elections in Kerala, Assam, and Puducherry concluded ahead of the April 9 voting day. In Delhi, a serious security breach occurred when a suspicious vehicle entered the state assembly complex. In the Trakakura constituency of Kerala, a UDF candidate was assaulted during election campaigning. The Indonesian government has announced an exceptional measure to keep domestic gasoline prices unchanged while neighboring countries are increasing fuel prices. This measure, along with limiting fuel purchases to 50 liters per vehicle per day, has effectively addressed speculation and hoarding. The Malaysian government announced the expansion of the subsidized diesel scheme (SKDS) and the introduction of fleet cards for the land freight transport sector in Sabah, Sarawak, and Labuan. Next, here are the key stories from South America. Chile and Argentina are strengthening cooperation on security and combating organized crime. Additionally, reports indicate that the UK is proceeding with plans for its next patrol vessel to continue activities in Antarctica. Chilean President José Antonio Cast made his first visit to Argentina and held talks with President Javier Milei. They discussed security, organized crime, and the extradition of former guerrilla member Galvarino Apreza, expressing their intention to jointly confront common enemies such as drug trafficking and cross-border organized crime. The UK Ministry of Defence has confirmed that it is advancing the development of capabilities for a future ice patrol vessel to replace the current HMS Protector, in order to support British sovereignty and broader interests in Antarctica. Reports indicate that the UK is proceeding with plans for its next patrol vessel to continue activities in Antarctica. That concludes today's Global News Report. Have a great day. Thank you for watching.